Let's get right into it. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Thug Rose Namajunas, who this past weekend defeated Amanda Ribas by a unanimous decision in a 5-round fight that was the headliner of UFC Fight Night, Ribas versus Namajunas. It went down, of course, at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Mark, start us off. Give us your take on how this fight played out. Thug Rose got it done. Her first big win at 125 pounds, turning the rising Ribas back.
Yeah, it was a good fight. It was a little bit of a strange fight because it felt like neither one of them could truly find a way to shine in it. I thought they both looked good overall. They both fought a smart fight where neither of them really gave the other any openings to exploit. Even on the ground, everything was just stifled by whoever was on bottom. So it wasn't the most exciting fight ever. I feel like neither girl really had a chance to show out, but they both fought well. From Amanda's side of things, she had her first main event. She hung with a former champ in Rose Namajunas, and even had some people who thought she should have won on the cards, which I didn't quite get. But my point is, despite the loss, not a terrible night for her. And from Rose's perspective, she got herself a win at 125. Now, granted, it was against a girl who also spent a lot of time at 115, so maybe not quite a true flyweight, but nonetheless, got a win, and she needed that. And she did look good. She was ready for the jiu-jitsu of Ribas. She controlled the grappling positions for the most part, I thought, outside of round 3. It seemed like she was a step ahead. And her timing was as sharp as ever. She still sees every little movement and can take advantage in the striking. She was slipping and countering beautifully. But I got to say, I did think she looked slow. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that was the slowest Rose Namajunas we've ever seen. So I don't know if that was an age thing or if it's a weight thing. I guess maybe we'll find out a little more next time we see her in there. But I thought it was noticeable compared to her normal self. But it didn't stop her from getting a W. I do think it was the right decision. I don't really get the people trying to say Ribas won that fight. I thought Rose won 1, 2, 4, and maybe even 5. So I was glad it went her way, but I thought it was well fought from both girls, and obviously a big win for Rose at this point.
Omar, bringing you in here, Omar, what were your thoughts of this fight over the course of 5 rounds?
I was also, throughout the fight, I should say, even from round 1, Ribas getting up and putting her hands up as if she had dominantly won that round was very odd to me. And I'm sure it was, we've seen fighters in the past just sort of do that as a way to either hype themselves up, keep themselves in the fight, play with the judges' feelings and things like that as sort of a strategic move and things like that. But it's just always very odd to me when you clearly didn't win the round. I feel like that works better in closer rounds, if you're trying to game the system to a certain extent, but like whiffing in a round and then putting your hands up seems really odd to me. And she did it every round. I'm not even sure if she did it at the end of the 3rd round, which I thought she won, which was also very weird to me. But I thought she clearly lost rounds 1, 2, 4, and 5. I didn't think that there was any debate. I was actually kind of confused as to why there was such a debate. There is no debate that it was a scrap. There is no debate that it was, a war to a certain extent. Neither one of these ladies backed off of each other, but I thought Rose got the better of her in most exchanges, especially on the ground. I think Ribas tried to do a lot of things that worked for her in a lot of the other situations with lower level competition that Rose took advantage of. The head and arm drag is one of them. The head and arm drag is one of those things that if you don't do it right, there's a lot of vulnerabilities. A lot of that placement of where that drag comes from. If you're too low, the center of gravity will just let you get flipped over. If you're too high, they can escape out the back door. There's a lot of things about that drag that if you don't do it right, gets you messed up. And Rose took advantage of it a couple of times, early and later on in the fight as well. And I think especially with somebody like Ribas, who we've seen utilize that technique over and over again, when you get to these high and elite levels, if they can nullify one of those techniques that works for you that well, you then become not only predictable, but easy to react to and easy to capitalize on. And I think Rose was able to do that throughout the fight. Third round, I thought, was the round that she clearly dropped. And she did look like there was she did look slower. I didn't think she looked any less skilled, though. I still think she looked like the Rose of old in that sense. Very in and out. I thought we had somebody in Ribas who was able to bring the fight out of Rose as well. We didn't have that Carla Esparza counter fighter on counter fighter kind of situation. So I thought it was a great fight. I just didn't think Ribas won any of those rounds other than the third round. I
still don't think that Ribas' stock necessarily fell on this loss. If anything, I think her stock rose as well, at least a little bit, because she showed that she can hang in there with a world champ. And she did not look bad at all. She was not blown out of the water. She wasn't blown out.
No.
And she held her own.
No, I agree. That's kind of what I was trying to say about her. But yeah, I think an aspect of this fight that made it weird where some of these people think Ribas was doing more than she did. And I think even the UFC strike counter thing, whatever their name for it is, was falling for this in a way, because you would see these counts and it was like Ribas is way ahead. Meanwhile, you're watching it and you're like, no, she isn't. There was a lot of shots that were hitting like Rose's shoulder and like Rose was blocking or slipping. And these are all, it seems like, adding up for Ribas. Meanwhile, like every shot Rose landed, Ribas's head was snapping backwards. So it was just, it was a big difference in the way things were landing, even though the numbers seemed to be saying, oh, look, Ribas is really outstriking her.
And I can tell you from a defense perspective, having a shot land on either your elbow or on your shoulder or something, something that you can react off of, because there's a lot of times that in a fight perspective, you're trained to react off of an impact. It's like a catch and shoot kind of situation. So you're catching a shot somewhere, whatever, and then you're reacting to it, uppercut, cross, whatever you want to do. But like a lot of those situations are necessary. So I feel like to lose points for something where you've defended properly seems like not a good situation.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Let's talk about where these ladies are going to go from here. Let's talk about Thug Rose Namajunas first. So her record now improves to 12-6. She's now 10-5 in the UFC. That was her 5th decision win as a pro. And she snaps a 2-fight losing skid. She lost in the title fight to Esparza and then lost a decision to Manon Fiore. The Esparza fight, once again, was a split decision loss. And now back to 125 pounds for another shot. And she gets the W over the very tough Ribas. Mark, where do you see Thug Rose going from here at 125?
So I think there's a few different paths for her. And she mentioned 2 of them, but it's actually option 3 that I am going with. She mentioned the loser of Blanchfield and Fiore, which is certainly possible. She mentioned Macy Barber, which is certainly possible. But to me, I think that is where they should go, that Macy should be fighting the loser of Blanchfield and Fiore. And I would like to see option 3, which I've said on here a couple times before, which is Natalia Silva. I think Rose and Natalia is a fantastic fight.
Yeah, man. That's a great fight. Omar, any other thoughts on Thug Rose?
I don't hate that. I did like the Macy Barber fight. I can't say I really don't. I love that fight. The Natalia Silva fight, though, is a good fucking fight.
Yeah, man.
And it's not like it doesn't make sense. I mean, they're right there in the rankings. So it's
I actually didn't even look. Where did they debut Rose? Has anyone looked?
7. She's right above Natalia Silva. It's like 8, the perfect fight. Yeah.
Makes
fantastic. Okay, let's talk about Amanda Ribas. Back in the loss column after defeating Luana Pinheiro back in November, now losing to the former champion Thug Rose Namajunas, her record falls to 12-5 and 7-4 now in the UFC. That was her 4th career loss by decision. Omar, give me the name of who you think Ribas could match up well with next.
Well, Tracy Cortez and Amanda Ribas were matched up way back when in 2022, and that fight got canceled. So I think this is probably a good time to revisit that situation there. I think the striking is interesting from Tracy Cortez in that aspect. I think Ribas, I think, likes to make us think her striking is legit, but she does a lot more moving than she does successful strikes. But her ground game can be a real problem if she gets a hold of somebody and gets on top. Rose obviously exploited a lot of situations in her ground game, but we have to see if Tracy Cortez is on that level. So I love that fight.
Mark, your thoughts?
I do like that choice if she stays at 125. I'll give you someone at 115 just because I know that she had said in her last fight when she went back down to 115 and beat Luana Pinheiro that she had tried 125 and she felt like she wanted to make another run at 115. But then this Rose thing came across her plate, and obviously you get a chance to fight Rose in a main event, you're going to take it. So sure. I'm kind of assuming that she's going to go back toward this plan of 115. Who honestly knows with her, because she does seem to bounce between both quite often. But I'll take that route since Omar covered 125, and I will say the loser of this upcoming fight at UFC 300 between Jessica Andrade and Marina Rodriguez. And I know she fought Marina already, but it was like 3+ years ago, and I think it could work at this point to run it back, even if that's who it ends up being. But I think either of those are cool fights.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like it. Love it. Gotta have it. Okay. Let's see. What is next for this fight night card? Let's go down the list here. The heavyweights occupied the octagon during the co-main event. Let me pull it up here. I lost it. What the fuck? One moment. Reloading. Here we go. Karl Williams defeated Justin Tafa by a unanimous decision in a 3-round co-main. Omar, start us off. Give us your thoughts on how these two heavyweights clashed in the UFC octagon this Saturday night.
This was a frustrating fight. Justin Tafa was quite obviously the better striker, was cracking Karl Williams with everything Karl Williams could handle just about. Credits Karl Williams for not eating shit in that fight and going down. But I mean, he was getting touched up quite a bit. And then Justin Tafa, in all of his raging glory, decided to throw a knee in the middle of this, and in almost Kimbo Slice versus Roy Nelson style, fucked up an entire fight he had. Karl Williams took him down to the ground, never let him back up for that round. Second round, kind of a lot of the same as far as the ground control from Karl Williams. And the third round, we're like, Justin Tafa's got to get this one, man. He's got to get in there. And again, cracking Karl Williams, piecing him up, doing some work. Karl Williams is trying to keep his shit together, trying to find him. At one point, I think his eyes were closed and just zombie walking, trying to hold on to somebody. Could have been the ref, could have been Justin Tafa. He had no idea. But going forward, and then Justin Tafa throws a head kick that just, no one asked him to throw any kicks there, right? He had a beautiful, if there was one kick he should have just stuck with the entire fight, it was a left body kick. He was throwing a left body kick from a southpaw position that was money. You could literally hear the sound for miles every time that shit hit. It was money. He didn't need to throw dick else. But he's here throwing knees that don't need to get thrown, that gets him taken down. Throws a head kick that throws him completely off balance, ends up on the ground, and never gets back up, and gives away the third round at that point. And so Justin Tafa loses when he didn't really lose. It was a frustrating fight for your boy. It's very frustrating.
Okay, Mark, your frustrated thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the wrestling was obviously the X factor in this fight, and it carried Karl Williams through. Justin Tafa had not been taken down coming in. We wondered last week if it was just because he hadn't really fought opponents who were looking to take him down as their option one, and now we know that is the case because he certainly got taken down quite a few times in this fight. And thank God he can get taken down because, as Omar alluded to, Karl Williams was eating some friggin' shots on the feet. And honestly, more than he ever should have. I don't know why he was so willing at the start of every round to get into these exchanges with Justin Tafa. Like, it really seemed like every time he stepped out there, he was like, I'm going to try the striking first and see how that works out. And like it was never going to work out. But he walked that fine line. But thankfully for him, every time he got hurt, he was able to find a takedown because Tafa would get overzealous, or he would just kind of, I don't want to say panic, but he would just go into like desperation mode. And he's a very strong guy. And he would like, that's why he was kind of getting some of these when he would just like grab a hold and push forward. You can see this in really all his fights thus far. He kind of runs dudes over. Like it's like football tackle type takedowns at times. He's just got like really strong legs. He gets a lot of drive behind his shots. So even in these times where he was like a little bit hurt and panicked, there's just a lot of drive. There's a lot of push behind his takedowns. And he was getting Tafa off balance again and again. So he got it done. He clearly out wrestled him every time they were on the ground. It was all Karl Williams. So yeah, it's a little hard to tell just how good he is at this point. I would like to see him dial in his game plan a bit more. But with all that said, it's 3 fights and 3 clear wins that are not even arguable. So can't hate on it too much.
That's true, man. That's true. Okay, let's talk about where these big boys might be going from here. Mark, your thoughts on where Karl Williams goes on the heels of this win. Just real quick, he has now improved his record to 10-1 and still undefeated under the UFC banner at 3-0 with the UFC. Mark?
Omar's going to love this one. I know Andre Arlovsky is still hanging around looking for a fight.
Bro.
He's not done yet. In all the matchups that we do, I haven't felt like anyone was the right person to really give Andre. I kind of think Karl Williams is that guy. I think that Andre has the right amount of veteran savvy, of movement, of potential takedown D if it's not the right type of shot, of potential danger in the hands. I just think it's the kind of test that Karl Williams needs to show he can get past at this point. And I don't think it's a terrible fight for Andre. So if he wants one, I'm giving him one.
Omar, your thoughts?
I'd rather go in the direction of somebody like a Shamil Gaziev, somebody who I think will also give him some problems. I think in the getting him down to the ground situation, and Gaziev will crack you in the face. So I think that's a good fight.
I almost picked it.
You know what I like? I like that Karl Williams doesn't have a nickname, and he has a man's name. He's just Karl Williams. He doesn't need a nickname because he's Karl, the adult Williams. The
Karl with a K.
Karl with a K, no less. Okay, let's talk about the man with a nickname, the bad man, Justin, not Junior Tafa. Omar, give me a thought about where this fighter out of New Zealand could end up next.
I'll tell you where I don't want to see him fight next is Muhammad Usman. And Usman just lost on that card, man. And they're like probably in the same arena, same number system with each other. So that's totally a possibility. And I would hate every moment of that.
Why would you hate it?
Because
spoiler alert, that's what I'm going with.
It's the same thing we just saw. I don't want to see that shit. If there's a fight that I would be more entertained by, I feel like it would be a fight with Chris Barnett. I don't really know what Chris Barnett is doing right now. I feel like he was just matched up and then he had to pull out of something.
He's had a few pullouts, yeah.
But if we could make that fight happen, I feel like that would be a fun fight.
Dude, his fight was Chris Barnett.
His fight was with Muhammad Usman. That was the fight that got canceled.
Oh, right. Yeah, right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, I was debating between those two men. So, I was going to say before, as a lead into that, Justin Tafa, as much as we love the guy and we've seen him have these great knockouts, he has failed to take that next step. Like he's 500 in the UFC and his wins are Austin Lane, Parker Porter, Harry Hunsucker, and Juan Adams. Like he hasn't gotten one to really move him up in this division. So he's kind of still hovering down there. And yeah, I think Omar nailed it. I think those two guys fit the bill. I was going to go with Mo Usman, who also lost on this card. because it's a similar type of test and you'd like to see Justin Tafa figure out how to pass that type of test. I think Mo is a little bit less of a dominant wrestler than Karl Williams is.
I would agree with that.
So that's why I'm kind of intrigued to say, like, okay, Justin, show us you can pass this one. And, you know, it works the other way for Mo as well. So, yeah, that's where I'll go.
Do you think Muhammad Usman would be more successful if he dropped a weight class?
I mean, I've kind of always thought it ever since Tough. I didn't even know.
Oh, really?
I shouldn't say I've always thought it. I've always wondered where he was going to choose to fight, is what I should say. Like the whole time he was on Tough, I was like, if he makes it to the UFC, I wonder if he's going to be a light heavyweight. In terms of where I think he'd be better, I don't know. I'm not sold on him, man. I'm just not. I bet against him this weekend.
His wrestling has never really been exceptional to me, and I feel like going down a weight class, I don't think is going to make it better. I think it'll make it worse, to be honest.
Yeah, and dudes are going to be quicker strikers down there.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, let's move on. Let's see. Okay, fun one. Still on the main card here, UFC Fight Night. At 185 pounds, Edmen Shahbazyan gets it done over AJ Dobson in the middleweight division. Shahbazyan back in the win column after losing to Fluffy Hernandez back in May of 2020. No, excuse me. Yeah. May of last year. May 20th. I read that wrong. I apologize. Shahbazyan does it with style, though, finishing AJ Dobson in the very first round, the official time 4:33 of round one. Omar, give us your thoughts of how this fight played out.
I know this fight didn't go on for very long, but this was very much a comeback fight for Edmen Shahbazyan because he was getting fucked up early on. For sure. I mean, he got touched real quick. Give him credit though, man. That dude kept his feet under him. You could see his body wanted to shake it, but he kept his feet under him, kept his composure, and weathered a nice early storm. And man, did he come back and just lay AJ Dobson down. I mean, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was a fight that Edmen Shahbazyan needed. He caught the submission right at the end there, right as they were coming up. But I mean, the damage was all hands. It was all damage. It was all hands. It was all ground and pound. And credit for Shahbazyan for not letting him up. It was a great comeback performance from him. He needed that.
Mark, your thoughts on the outcome?
Yeah, I mean, Omar kind of summarized it beautifully right there, but this was a crazy 5 minutes, and it certainly was a hell of a comeback from Edmen. He was in trouble early. AJ came out looking so much faster, which is not really something I had anticipated, but the hand speed was a huge problem for Edmen to start that fight. He got hurt, on the feet 2 different times. He pushed through it and got a takedown to give himself a breather, but even there, he ends up getting out wrestled for the most part. And then he gets up and they reset on the feet and it's over just like that. They exchange. It didn't even look like it was that clean of a left hand, but you could see it kind of hit Dobson behind the ear and it knocked his equilibrium. Yeah. And he backed up to the cage and Edmen just fucking pounced and poured it on. Like you could tell he was not letting that moment pass. He was like, I'm doing this right now or it's not happening.
Yep.
And he did. He landed some bombs. He eventually put Dobson all the way out. And yeah, it's a huge win for him. He really, really needed it, and he got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Great stuff from Shahbazyan. I was wrong about that. What didn't I take? I think I took Dobson.
Yes.
I mean, you weren't that far from being right, to be honest. I mean, Dobson had done some good work up until he got caught. I mean, that was just the reality of the fight. It was a tumultuous fight, chaotic, and Edmen Shahbazyan just won the coin toss that night.
So Edmen, the Golden Boy Shahbazyan, fighting out of Las Vegas, his record now as a professional violence doer climbs up to 13-4, 6-4 in the UFC with this win over AJ Dobson. Mark, give us the name of who you think Shahbazyan should be fighting next at middleweight.
So I said it last week. I said that if Edmen won this fight, I really thought him and Gerald Meerschaert would be an awesome fight, and I stand by that. That's where I'm going to go. I think they're a really interesting test for each other. They both pose a lot of problems for the other to have to deal with.
Yeah, that's a great point. Omar, your thoughts?
That's actually that's obviously a much better fight from him from a rankings perspective. I was kind of more in line with Roman Kopylov, having just come off of the loss to Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Stylistically, that fight intrigues the hell out of me.
It's a fun one too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Man, absolutely.
Someone dies in that fight, I think.
100%, and probably from some kick somewhere to somebody, like body piece.
Yeah. Okay, let's see.
Spoilers before we go to this next part. AJ Dobson has officially been released from the UFC, so we don't have to.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Oh, yeah. I did not know that. Good to know. Yeah. We do not need to match him up, but say happy trails and best of luck in the rest of his career, wherever it may go.
By the way, to fight, what's I don't know what Edmen is at in most people's world rankings. I think in mine, let me see for reference. Coming into this fight, I had Edmen at 22. And he just almost finished the number 22 middleweight in the first round. And instead, he is losing his job. Like, that's fucking tough, man.
Yeah, it's like, go somewhere else. Go fight for LFA or whoever else. Mm-hmm. Or APFC. Let's go. Let's go, baby.
Or you could be like Sam Alvey out here, go to Karate Combat and become a champion.
Yeah, man. Sam Alvey.
Let's go, Sam Alvey. Spoilers. We're going to get into that.
Awesome. Okay. Well, then let's move on. This fight. I am very excited to talk about this result. In the bantamweight division, Payton Talbott defeats Cameron Saaiman. He finishes him in the second round. The official time only 21 seconds into the second round for Payton Talbott. Omar, give me your thoughts.
Don't give me shit about my anime picks. That's what I'm going to tell you. I told you. If kid watches Bleach, he's a problem. Period. All right? That's just what it is.
What a sentence.
It's just it. Kid's fantastic, man. I was really high on him the first time I saw him. The tattoo definitely brought me in. I'm not going to lie, but I stayed for the content. And kid's very, very skilled. This one, though, I thought really put him on the map. I mean, the shots were super accurate, super heavy, timed so insanely well. And I mean, he made Cameron Saaiman look like he wasn't one of the hottest prospects that the UFC had on the way up. He really made Cameron Saaiman look like he was a can. And I think that's crazy. Just all the way around. I thought the whole situation was crazy. His performance was absolutely on point. I think this kid, if nothing else, man, is going to be a lot of fun for a good while.
Mark, your thoughts on Payton Talbott staying undefeated, now 8-0, with this great, very impressive win over another hot prospect in Cameron Saaiman?
So people who watched last week may remember that I said I didn't feel like I knew enough about Talbott yet, and that it was very possible that I come out of this fight saying, oh, wow, Payton Talbott is really good. Well, oh, wow, Payton Talbott is really good. Mm-hmm. He looked disgusting. He just put a huge spotlight on himself with that performance. It was complete dominance. It was a drubbing. You can tell that he has it because as most guys who have it do, you can see the calmness that he's able to fight with in what's obviously a very crazy environment. It's very evident. He looks like he is in control of every second of every movement. He does enter like he's a little bit invincible a lot, which scares me. He kind of just walks forward with his hands down and his head kind of out there. So I get it. You're young. You haven't lost. Is he undefeated? I actually forget he's undefeated. He is, right? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're young. You haven't lost. You feel a little bit invincible, and it's part of the vibe, and it's part of what is driving your success. But I would still like to see him clean that up at least a little as he's moving up these ranks. Like, I get it that it's part of the style, but maybe just a little bit of hands up would be a good thing. But like I said, it is part of the style because he draws you into these spots where he can counter you. And it's working for him right now because he sees everything. His vision and his anticipation of where you're going to go are fantastic. And obviously he's a crazy offensive talent. I mean, that knee alone sounded like a gunshot. I don't know how on earth Cameron Saaiman survived that. What a freaking animal Cameron Saaiman is to endure, everything he did in that fight.
Yeah.
But he couldn't handle the full onslaught by the end. And Payton Talbott is a name to watch. I mean, I don't know if you saw, I saw today, Sean O'Malley talking about Payton Talbott. Like that's how good Payton Talbott looks, that his name is already on the lips of top tier fighters.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you, to me, he looks like he has great size for 135 pounds. He looked to me bigger, more physical than Cameron Saaiman. It seemed like Saaiman, who is a guy who I thought was this firecracker coming in at 135 pounds, he looked like he couldn't do anything to Payton Talbott, power-wise, striking-wise. And Talbot just walked him down, man. And he I think whether it was whoever was on the broadcast, was it I'm blanking on his name, not Anik, what's his name?
Fitzgerald.
I think he said he was big brothering him, and I was like, that's a freaking perfect word.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you guys, I was a little salty about Payton Talbot because in his UFC debut after Contender Series, he took out a guy that I've announced before, Nick Aguirre. I've announced Aguirre. I've announced his brother, Victor Aguirre, who I'm announcing in 2 weeks at the next day at PFC. I'm announcing Victor Aguirre's pro debut. And I've gotten to know the both of them and their father and like their family. So they're really good guys. So when Talbot took out Nick Aguirre, I was like, God, a little salty about it. But I'll tell you now, I'm turning because I'm becoming a fan of his, because the man is clearly very skilled, and I'm becoming a fan, and he's undeniable. He's undeniable. Yeah. He's only 25 years old, and I learned this week in his interview with Helwani that he only started training at like 17 or 18. MMA was never really on his radar as a kid and as a teenager.
Yeah. Wow.
And he just was like, yeah, I think I want to try that out. And he joined a gym, and now he's a freaking undefeated pro.
But the gem that you might have missed in there, the real gem of that story that I thought was the real takeaway, just especially us fucking semi-old men, is Conor McGregor was his thing. He saw Conor McGregor fight. That was his Chuck Liddell.
Right.
He saw him fight and was like, damn, they really allow this shit? Like, this is something that people get paid to do? Let's go. I want to do this. And we're at that point. You know what I mean? People could talk about Conor McGregor all they want and this, that, and the other. Conor McGregor has single-handedly influenced what is probably going to be an entire generation of fighters at this point.
100%.
And we're seeing
people that have made it to the top already. Like we were just talking about Topuria the other day, clearly influenced by Conor, and there's plenty of others.
It's a wild ride, man. This is all wild.
Did Talbot say? Did he say like? Did he fight in school a lot as a kid? Does he have any kind of background like that?
I don't remember him saying anything like that. No. He was just saw it on TV. Just kind of like I think we all did when we first started watching MMA. It just came on. You know, you got stuck on it. You either got stuck looking at it or you didn't.
Same. That was me. Mark, what were you gonna say?
For your boy Nick Aguirre, is that how you say it, Aguirre?
Aguirre,
sorry. I think that is going to quickly change from, I fucking lost to this dude, Payton Talbot, to, man, one day I had a fight with that guy, Payton Talbot. Like,
yeah.
That's how good he looks.
And there's just levels to this, man. When I announced Nick Aguirre for APFC in his fight, and it was a pro fight, and he like embarrassed some guy. Like he was like a league above the guy that he fought. And for Talbot to do what he did to Nick Aguirre, I was like, God damn.
And that's really the difference too about the regional circuit, right? You find guys that are kind of in that little small pool, and then once you start getting into the world rankings, the world pool, shit gets real, man. A really, really different game.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's talk about what could be next for these two guys. Let's start with Payton Talbot. Once again, still only 25 years old, from Las Vegas, born in Las Vegas, fighting out of Reno. still undefeated, now 8-0 as a pro, 1 on Contender Series, and now 2-0 officially under the UFC banner. Mark, give me the name of what you want to see next for this rising dynamo Payton Talbott at bantamweight.
It's interesting, right? Because you could name someone who is like top 20 right now and it wouldn't feel crazy because he just looks that good. But I'm going to try to pump the brakes a little bit, and I'm going to take more of a proper step and have him at least beat someone who's kind of a vet before we like go all the way into the deep end. So I went with Eamon Zahabi, who just got himself a big win over Javid Basharat a few weeks back, as the one more fight where he'd have to show out before we throw him fully into the deep end.
Okay. Omar, your thoughts?
I am probably going to throw him a little bit further than that, and I will throw him towards Ronnie Yaya.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I would say that's less further.
You think so?
Less further.
Where do you have him on your rankings?
That's a good question, but I feel like lower than Javid Basharat. Maybe not.
Well, since we don't have
dude,
access...
I literally have them in a line.
Oh,
Eamon, Javid, Ronnie in a fucking row. That's funny. All right.
Not that far off.
Yeah,
I guess we are in the same little area.
Look at us.
Okay, let's talk about Cameron Saaiman here. Once undefeated, now lost his first 2 pro bouts back-to-back against Christian Rodriguez and now Payton Talbott. Omar, give me the name of who you want to see Cameron Saaiman fight next at bantamweight.
Yeah, it's a rough one for him, man. I don't think he falls very far from where he's at, but you can't really push him up very much, I think, at this point. I don't know. I get maybe somebody like a Brady Highstand, maybe, or even somebody like a Kyung Ho Kang might be a good one for him, but he can't really move him too much from where he's at right now.
Mark?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the 2 in a row is rough. I want to give him a chance to bounce back, but like I'm not just trying to, he was a fairly big prospect, so I don't want to feel like he shouldn't just be getting a layup here. So I landed on Brad Katona. I feel like they're kind of similar fighters. I feel like that could be a crazy fight.
Okay, going up to featherweight now, Youssef Zalal gets it done, defeats Billy Quarantillo by submission via rear naked choke in the second round. The official time, 150 of round number 2. And their 3-round affair. Let's talk about it. Mark, give us your thoughts of how this fight played out.
So we're sitting here talking about how much Payton Talbott showed out.
Yeah, Jesus
Youssef
Christ.
Zalal was basically the same thing. I mean, this dude fought this fight looking like he's a top 10 featherweight in the world. Like Billy Q, anywhere you looked really going into that fight, was ranked in the top 20. And he got worked by Zalal in every aspect of the fight. Zalal was faster. His movement was fantastic. Billy couldn't even really touch him, let alone trap him the way he was trying to.
Yeah.
Zalal's counters were working. He rocked Billy with a beautiful knee. He hit multiple trip takedowns in the fight. And every time they hit the mat, he was in total control and obviously got the finish there. And all this was on short notice for Youssef Zalal as well. So the level up was just crazy. I mean, this dude was in the UFC. He went 3-3-1, kind of bouncing around between bantamweight and featherweight. He comes back short notice at featherweight and does this. Like, it wasn't supposed to be this easy based on the resume, and it was. So clearly Youssef Zalal has leveled up. I know he went 3-0 outside of the promotion to earn his way back here. He is older now. He's in his physical prime. It looks like he has physically filled out compared to the frame that we saw in his first UFC run. He seems like he's much more confident in his own abilities. You could see that in this fight. He was talking in there. He seemed like he really didn't feel like he could lose. And based on what we just saw, he may very quickly become a factor at 145. So I'm curious to see if he can repeat that performance next time out.
Omar, your thoughts on Zalal?
I would agree. I mean, the sentiment that this is kind of similar to the Talbott fight in the showing out, I would have to agree, because for me, Zalal was the one that in my head I was like, I'm not I don't know. I don't know if I felt confident enough, obviously, to pick him against Billy Q. And Billy Q's been there for a minute. I'm a big Billy Q fan and all that stuff. Zalal put all that to bed. I mean, he really did show out. He looked absolutely fantastic and absolutely dominant in that fight. The shots were insane. The ground control was a problem. Just when you thought Billy Q might have been good getting out of that first round, out of that choke, there he was right back in it in the second round. It was a really, really dominant performance from Zalal, and you got to imagine he's probably going to get a good spot in his next fight.
So let's talk about that. Zalal, his record now rises to 14-5-1 for the fighter out of Casablanca, Morocco. The Moroccan Devil is his nickname. Dude, Casablanca, what a fucking dope movie. What a classic. Have you guys seen that?
No,
Omar, have you seen that? Please tell me yes. You're the movie guy.
I don't think I have.
Oh, so classic.
No.
His record in the UFC rises to 4-3 with one draw, and he's been on a bit of a tear now as a pro. He's on a 6-fight win streak overall as a professional. And Omar, give us.
Is he damn? I thought he went 3-0. I didn't realize he won that many.
Yeah, hasn't lost a fight since 2021.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Oh no,
I'm
sorry.
I think it's crazy.
I'm sorry.
He's 4-3
no,
in the UFC.
I'm wrong. He's 4 in a row. 4 in a row.
Oh, okay. I was right then. 3 in a row.
Yeah, Tapology always keeps the default on Tapology that it merges all of their different combat sport records.
Yeah. For fight records, you got to go Sherdog. Each website has its pros and its cons.
Yes. Okay, Omar, give us the name.
Do you ever look at some of these guys' records and be like, dude, what the hell happened? Because like his first UFC run was decision, like against like just dudes, right? Yep. And then he gets Tapuria'd, he gets decision by Sung Woo Choi, by Sean Woodson in a split decision, which Sean Woodson's like half, like known for. And then just gets cut from the UFC like a random whatever UFC ex-fighter. Yep. And then goes on to murder a bunch of people in a different organization, and then comes back to the UFC in this return debut and absolutely puts the shit beat on Billy Quarantillo. Like, what happened? What happened? Yeah. Something must have switched in that dude somewhere. I mean, because he went on to 3 first-round finishes after this stint of what seemed like long, drawn-out fights. So I don't know what happened, man, but good for him. It's definitely the momentum and the results that you want. Totally. As far as the fights are concerned and what's next for him, I kind of want to give him somebody a little bit further up the rankings just from that performance alone. And I'm just going to double check and make sure he doesn't have anything planned, and I should have done that first, but I didn't. And here we are, and he doesn't. And my choice is Sadiq Youssef.
Okay. Mark, your thoughts?
He's fighting Diego Lopes at UFC 300. Isn't he?
No.
That fight is... Oh, Tapology usually has the goddamn pictures, and they didn't here. You bunch of bitches. All right. The loser of that fight, then. I'll stick with that. I'll still stick with that, though.
I like that. So, yeah, in that vein, I think you could absolutely give Zalal a ranked fighter and nobody would bat an eye after what he just did. Yeah. I guess kind of similar to what I just did with Talbott. I want him to prove it at a similar level and just show that it wasn't purely a matchup-based outcome that we just saw before we jump him into ranked fighters. So I went with Nathaniel Wood.
Nice. Okay, one more now. The main card of this UFC fight night, staying in the featherweight division, Fernando Padilla looking good over Luis Pajuelo, getting it done by a Darce choke in the very first round. The official time, 2:45 of round number 1 for the winner out of Chihuahua, Mexico. Fernando Padilla improving his record to 16-5. Omar, start us off. Give us your thoughts, your impressions on Padilla styling in the first round.
Yeah, man, the kid looks good. He generally looks good. I think for me, the thing I've loved about watching Padilla fight is his reach. When he uses his reach properly, he really is a big problem. And I realize now I got in my mind's eye, I saw part of that finish, and I confused it with the part of the Edmen Shahbazyan AJ Dobson finish, where they both ended up on the cage getting fucked up a little bit, but there was no submission attempt from Shahbazyan. The submission was from Fernando Padilla, which ended up in a Bravo choke against the cage. But that came long after Padilla was putting the beats on Luis Pajuelo. Frankly, the submission choke was just sort of like here's your way out, my friend.
Yeah.
It started with, I think he dropped him with a jab, if I'm not mistaken.
It was like it was a straight.
Was it a straight? Was it from the left? Was it from the southpah?
I'm pretty
it was a left hand. Okay,
I think it was a left from south. Yes, correct. I feel like that's how I'm envisioning it in my mind, but I'm not gonna say I'm 100% right.
Either way, I mean, once he dropped him, man, I mean, it was the beginning of the end. His instinct to get in there and finish the fight, I thought was fantastic, especially with his ability to do so. He went right down to the ground, continued to put the beats on him, followed him where he needed to go, got him up against the cage, slipped in the choke, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, man. Mark?
Yeah, the first thing I noticed was that I'm forgetting the first name, Luis Pajuelo did not look great for a guy with boxing credentials. So I think I had higher hopes coming into that for how he would look. I guess he was struggling with the reach, and obviously that played a factor in the end because he pressed forward against the cage, and I think he thought the range was good, and he quickly found out that it was not, and he got dropped by the stiff straight that we were just talking about. And then, once Padilla had Pajuelo hurt and in a grappling situation, it was a big advantage for him. And you saw that Pajuelo tried to stand recklessly, and Padilla saw the neck and snatched the darts right away, and it was a quick tap. So Padilla's a little weird. We've had a great one from him in his debut where he finished Arosa. Then we had a really discouraging one where he kind of fought like he didn't care against Kyle Nelson, and now another beautiful one. So we'll see as he goes on here which guy is the norm, but that was a great performance.
Yeah,
man. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Okay, let's quickly match them up, and then we'll get into our lightning round here. So Padilla, once again, his record climbs up to 16-5, 3-1, 2-1, excuse me, in the UFC with this win over Pajuelo. Mark, give us the name of who you think he should match up with next at 45.
I went with Sungwoo Choi. I think he's the right level of opponent. I think he brings the right amount of craziness to test Padilla.
Omar?
In the same vein as craziness, I actually went towards a Darren Elkins. I know Mark had a different plan for Darren Elkins a week or so ago. I can't remember who you had him matched up with.
C-Rod, yes, you're right.
Oh, okay. But I do think that this would be a different level of craziness.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Okay, anything you guys want to say about Peru's Luis Pajuelo? Omar?
Where is Pajuelo? He's got to be all the way at the bottom here. Why don't we put him up against this kid who, I'll give you two names just because I think both of these guys are in need of a win. I think everybody in this conversation here is probably going to be in need of a win. But either Dennis I'm going to call him Bazooka because I know that's his nickname, and I'm not going to try to do anything else. So Dennis Bazooka or Blake Builder.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they were actually saying it because I didn't catch his fight on Saturday, but the dude that Jarno Aarons beat, I don't know if he says Stephen Nguyen or Stephen Nguyen. I know sometimes these guys with this last name say it different ways, but he lost in his debut on Saturday, so I will pair him up with Pajuelo, who also lost his.
I would think it's Nguyen, but maybe not.
Dude, there are three different fighters. Well, sorry, no. There's a poker player who says win, and then there are two different fighters I know. One says Nguyen and one says Nguyen. So, what? I don't fucking know what I'm supposed to say.
Oh, all right. Well, fair enough.
Okay. Lightning round?
Lightning.
So we said we weren't doing a lightning. We said we were just going to do notes.
No lightning round.
Fuck the lightning round. My bad.
But
then let's
shout out to Julian Erosa though.
Yeah, I was gonna
Nasty
say that's the
finish.
one I was gonna make a note on. That was a
Notables.
crazy fucking fight.
Notables from the prelims.
The just to talk about that one for a minute, and then Omar, you can probably talk about the bite one if you want, because I never caught that fight.
Yeah.
But Ricardo Ramos has got to be in a dark place right now. I mean, that's back-to-back fights where he was looking great and put his head into a guillotine. Like he's got to be beside himself in a dark room. Like I don't know why he ever even chose to wrestle in the first place, because he had Erosa rocked bad. And I think it was the wrestling that let Julian kind of get his brain back in order. But props to Julian, man. He pushed through adversity. He saw the guillotine. He jumped on it right away. Clearly, he had a crazy squeeze, because it looked like Hamos's head was very set to pop out, and it just wasn't popping out. So that's all Rosa and the squeeze on that. And he gets a big dub in a fight where it looked like he was in big trouble.
Yeah. Okay, Omar, any other thoughts on notes on the prelims?
I mean, if you've, just to reference, I guess the
I want to hear about it. I haven't got to watch it yet.
It was weird, because it's one of these things where, like, I wonder if they would have even caught it. So he had back control. They were standing and they were against the cage, and Severino had back control, and it almost looked like Severino wanted to get his head in between, like, the armpit and the head, but, like, he couldn't, and you can't really even see him bite him. But it's like, how the fuck did your teeth even get involved in there? Because, like,
So I was going to ask you that. Was his mouth guard not in?
I don't know. I didn't see anything come out. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea how he did that.
I saw the picture of the bite mark on Twitter, and that was my first thought. I was like, was this dude not wearing a mouth guard? Like, how is that even possible?
He was all the way in it, too. I mean, usually mouth guards will have, like, one side of your teeth protected and not necessarily the bottom half. Like, there are one-sided mouth guards. Yeah. But, like, the bite mark looked like he got fucking both sides involved in there. Yeah, it was weird, man, because that bite mark was deep. It didn't break skin from what it looked like. But it was weird. It was weird, man. It's a weird choice. I don't understand what the logic is about these things, because obviously they DQ'd him. He got cut. He's probably going to get, I would imagine, somewhat blacklisted a little bit. I doubt promotions are going to be scrambling to sign the kid who bit somebody in the middle of a goddamn fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very odd. Shout out to Andre Lima for getting a tattoo of his bite mark.
Why are we shouting that out? What a weird,
because he made $50,000 off of that bite, and so I feel it.
Yeah, I heard it was a crazy fucking fight. Which, when it happened, when I was getting the updates on my phone, I was on Twitter and I'm seeing all these people being like, "What an incredible fight! These dudes are laying it on the line." Blah blah blah. So when I heard the bite happen, I was like, "Man, it must have just been that they were both like so close to being like out of it, and the dude just like was outside of his mind and was trying to stay alive and bit him." Then I see the replay and he's just chilling in a clinch and bites his fucking arm. Like it wasn't even in any crazy situation.
No, it was a crazy
him against the cage.
It was a crazy fight, and there was a lot of back and forth. I mean, these kids were swinging at each other, absolutely swinging at each other. But it got to a point where it looked like they just got frustrated against the cage. There was some cage pulling involved, and like Toyoni was like telling them to cut the shit off, and so maybe that might have pissed off what's his name, Silviero. Severino, yes.
I'm making that up. No, De Silva, right? No,
it's Severino. Igor Severino.
Oh, I think he's listed as both in different places. Igor De Silva and Igor Severino.
That doesn't help anybody, man. I don't know.
Am I making that up? I feel like that's
no. You might be right. Anyway, it was a wild situation. The fact that even happened is still crazy.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.